Witam serdecznie.
Welcome cordially to our studio, the Deputy Chairman of the competition, Marcin Krupa. Welcome, welcome. So what? We have a Polish winner. Yes, we have a Polish winner. We're very glad because I can't remember for quite a time a Pole winning the competition here in Poznań. So we're really glad. Does it show the power of the Polish school of violin making? Yeah, I believe it does, because, well, many Polish violin makers in the recent years took the first prizes, top prizes in international violin making competitions. Piotrek Pielaszek, a young generation maker, is one of those. He also won plenty of honorable mentions and prizes in other competitions. Did you have any contact with him before? Yes, I know Piotrek because he came to Poznań some time ago to learn violin making, first in the musical secondary school, then he studied at the Academy of Music in Poznań. That's the Ignacy Jan Paderewski Academy of Music. So I'm also an academic teacher here at the Academy of Music. So in those several years I could observe, and we could also exchange views about violin making, and all the time we have this contact. How can a competition like this help a career? A competition has many dimensions which can help later in work. One of them, perhaps the most important, is the prestige. You take the first place and you're the best in the given group of violin makers. And that also lets you break through to the world of musicians. Well, musicians learn about you, and it lets you win clients, win custom. That's one thing. There's another thing, namely, well, that case also means that you work for years on instruments, you spend plenty of time to the making of those violins. It must be your passion. And coming first gives you really that kick for the future. You learn that what you do is cool, that it brings you some results and can be helpful in your future development as a violin maker. From your point of view, what is this key in those competitions? What is the power? The most distinguishing feature here is that we work only on violins. Most international competitions are organized in multiple categories, so you also have violas, cellos, bows. We follow our tradition because for nearly 70 years the competitions have been organized in violin-only category, and we simply received a bit fewer instruments. In Cremona you only have 200, 300 violins and perhaps 100 cellos, and the assessment of those instruments is much harder. Here we can spend more time on the assessment. The evaluation of instruments is more precise here, but also the observers and the violin makers who want to watch them, they arrive at the competition and they don't watch 300 of them, but just like in the case of this round, it's 70 plus instruments. We can focus more, we can investigate them more precisely. What have you paid special attention to as a member of a jury? Well, obviously to plenty of aspects. These have been elements of style, elements of the varnish, the guise, the looks of the varnish. Do you also smell to assess? Yes, because you can smell that varnish or whatever the maker sometimes used inside, sometimes there are, some preparations to color the wood inside a bit, or perhaps to proof it. Sometimes we can tell you what somebody used to do it. Does it influence your verdict? Perhaps not the verdict, no. We rather focus on the visual aspects of an instrument. And, well, other than that, we also assess such aspects as the preparation of an instrument to play. It's important that getting the instrument to their hands, the musician finds it easy to play, so that nothing gets in the way, so that the instrument rather helps than gets in the way. You also participated in the whole process of delivering the... No, we can't, no. We mustn't participate in that. So, the jury, when do the jury enter the play? Immediately the assessment. So there's the start of the competition, all the instruments have been prepped up, and they are only numbered so that we absolutely don't know them. We don't know the names of the makers, so that we don't follow some names, schools, countries. But there is a pre-selection. Yes, there is a pre-selection, and that's by the jury. Well, there is this pre-selection whether the instruments can be admitted to the competition. They may be damaged. Sometimes they get damaged in transport, and they can't be too extravagant either. No, and they mustn't have any elements that would make it possible to tell you who they are, who they were made by. They can't have any stamp, any brand burned. Why do you care for anonymity so much? Well, so that we don't follow the name or the country of origin, and we must focus on the instrument only. Isn't it so that you're so experienced that you look at it and you know something about the instrument? Yes, we can recognize the works of certain people sometimes. And what then? It's not always 100% sure. As a violin maker, you evolve and you can surprise us. There is never 100% certainty, ever. In the third stage, the violins were presented behind a veil, behind a screen. Why do you think it is so? Well, it's also, again, this anonymity of the competition, so that we don't follow the experiences, the impressions we had before. There are some decorations. In this case, one instrument had some decorations. So from several meters, we can tell you what instrument that is. If it's very bright, we can say that's it. We mustn't just follow our memory that it looked very nicely, but those, you play on them, so you know some sound values. Yes, we know what the musicians, what were the scores at the end of the second level, but we need the screen so that we were not, swayed by those values from the second stage. Do you believe this is one of the most important? Yes, it is counted among the most important ones. One, because it's an ancient one. The tradition is nearly 70 years old, and it's highly recognized globally. So it's one of the most prestigious. Oh, right. I've tried to learn from the winner what the secret of the winning bids is, and he said that he finds it hard to put his finger on a secret, that this results from the care for all the details, from the discipline. And what is it like, according to you? Secrets? No, that's a myth that every violin maker has a secret. Well, there are differences under. No, there are no two identical hands, so we can't make two identical instruments. But for the sound, for everything, every piece of wood is different, so every instrument is going to sound differently. Every musician will tell you that. How about the quality of the violin? Well, that's the combination of the skill, of the making, the knowledge we have to make that instrument, and on top of that comes the wood, which is always different, and we must know what wood to choose so that potentially it's the best possible for the sound. Do you believe it is possible to build a brand among violin makers, as brands happened hundreds of years ago? It's very difficult, but probably not impossible. Well, musicians, the top musicians, they all want to have the old instruments, Stradivari, or generally the Cremona school. And it's an absolute rarity that a famous violinist played a contemporary instrument. And that makes the building of a brand difficult. But I believe that contemporary instruments would not really diverge from the old ones. Among the old ones, there's this group that boasts perfect sound, really, and they are played by the best of the violinists. And it's also difficult for us to achieve this class of sound. But let's say we can get very, very close. But we can even make better sounding instruments than the old ones. So the opportunity is there. Yes, the opportunity is there that contemporary violins finish, because the Stradivari is not going to live forever. Okay, please tell me, what made you a violin maker? In my case, this is a family tradition. My father is a violin maker, and he just passed on that. We may be, a case of a family doing this because my brother does it. What's your specialization? I also specialize in the building of new instruments, but I also make bows. That's not typical. Yes, as a rule, the people who make bows either just make bows, build them, or they build instruments. And people who make both, that's a rarity. There are very few of them in the world. So what's most characteristic of a good bow? Again, there are plenty of different aspects, just like with a violin. It's got to leap well, it must be perfect craftsmanship, it can't be too heavy. So there are plenty of different aspects. Thank you very much for this interview. Thank you very much from all my heart. Thank you.